About a year ago, I was in Spartanburg, South Carolina with BMW, and I tested out the all-new 2020 X6 M50i. Now, even though that vehicle had a bunch of M badges all over it, it technically wasn't a full-fledged M model because that model was exactly a year away. Well, a year later, I'm standing by the 2020 BMW X6 M competition, fortified with an extra 100 horsepower over the M50i. It's designed to be the ultimate version of BMW's sports activity coupe. With nearly 617 horsepower, this has about 50 more horsepower than the previous generation X6M. So the big question I want to answer, if you guys are looking for the ultimate sport coupified SUV, how does the new X6M stack up? That's what we're here to find out. So like every other BMW product with an M badge on it, the M actually stands for motor. So I figured I'd show you guys what's going on underneath the hood. Now, just like the M50i that I tested last year, this also has a 4.4 liter twin turbocharged V8. However, if you guys go for the regular X6M, it has 600 horsepower. So that's a nice increase of about 70 ponies, 80 ponies over the M50i. However, with the competition package that my tester has, which adds 17 more horsepower, you get 617 horsepower and 567 pound-feet of torque. That makes this more powerful than the last Mercedes-AMG GLE 63S that I tested, which was also a really fast vehicle, but as you guys know, there's a horsepower war going on between the Germans. Now, like other BMW M products, it all goes out through their xDrive M version of this, so it basically has the ability to send more power to the rear wheels. However, it doesn't give you the full-on rear-wheel drive drift mode that you can get from an M5 or an M8. Remember, this is supposed to be an SUV to be more comfortable and a little bit more practical. It all goes out through an 8-speed torque converter automatic. That's right, BMW got rid of their dual clutches in recent years and replaced it with regular automatics. Despite that, it does have launch control, and BMW says you should get to 60 in around 3.7 seconds with the competition package. As this one sits, it's a pretty heavy vehicle. It weighs around 5,300 pounds, but it's still an SUV, so you can tow a maximum of about 6,000 pounds. And fuel economy, it's rated to get 15 in the city, 18 on the highway. It has about a 23-gallon gas tank, and you better be putting premium gas in this thing. Now, shutting the hood and looking at the rest of the styling, now BMW is on a roll with completely alienating most of their customers with these massive grills. And I'm happy to say the X6M is spared of that for now because you don't have that nasty, huge nostril that you get on the new 4 Series, which I haven't seen in person yet. But I will say in the mineral white metallic with all the black accents on the competition model, I think it's a really good looking SUV from the front fascia. You can see the headlights. The front end has the same look that you see in something like the X5 competition. You have these laser light headlights that are included on this particular model. The laser light headlights are only on the high beams, but you can see with the blue accents in there, they make the headlights very bright at night, and you can see all the black accents, the black grille. There's a camera at the front of the grille because my tester has the 360 camera and the active park assist. But overall, I think it's a really good looking SUV from the front. You really wouldn't be able to tell this is the X6 because remember, the X5 and the X6 share a platform. It's just when you look at the rear, it's completely different. Now, looking at the side profile, you can see at 195 inches long, this is a mid-size SUV. It rides on the same wheelbase as the X5 at 117 inches long. And the wheels, I really like the wheels on my particular tester. These are the 22-inch wheels that you get with the competition model. It's actually a staggered setup, so there are 21s in the front, 22s at the back, fat 315 wide tires with M specified brakes up front with the blue calipers. It really gives you some serious stopping power because remember, this beast is capable of over 180 miles an hour in terms of a top speed. Now, this is where you're gonna see the differences between this car and the X5. Obviously, it's got that sloping roofline. This is one of the first cars to introduce that coupified SUV look. And you know what, here, I used to hate the way these SUVs look, but I have to say it's very unique, so I can see why people would rather drive this over something that your neighbor drives, which is probably like an X5 or just a regular rooflined vehicle. The rear end is very controversial when you look at it from back here. I see a lot of the Grand Coupe styling that BMW's been introducing on some of their other models. These taillights are very slim. It does remind me of an X4 as well, which is a little bit bad because this is a much more expensive and larger vehicle. You can see there's an X6M competition badge over there, which is blacked out. And then down here, there's a rear diffuser and very nice looking quad outlet exhaust, which are real, unlike some other German manufacturers, which I won't name them right now. So obviously this is the M version, the full-on M version. I want to hear what this bad boy sounds like really quick. That's nice. Yeah, I'm really happy that BMW got the sound right on this thing, at least from the outside. And opening up the trunk area, this car does have the smart liftgate system, so you can kind of kick your foot under there if you got like your hands full. But when you open up the cargo area, BMW says you get around 27 cubic feet of space, which is about 5 cubic feet less versus what you get in the X5. And then you fold down everything, you get around 59 cubic feet of space, which is about 12 cubic feet less. So you do give up some practicality by not going with the X5, but I guess if you want something different, this is still a relatively practical vehicle. Now on the inside of the 2020 BMW X6M competition, just like the non-M version that I tested last year, the competition model, or the M version, has the interior that's pretty familiar. However, you can tell these seats are the really nice seats. These are the same ones that I've liked in the BMW M5 because they adjust in like 16 different ways. They're heated and cooled and massaging, and they have this really cool lighted M or X6M badge that's kind of in the headrest of both front seats. And as you can see, when you get inside this interior, BMW has been really hard at work to try to make their interiors feel a lot more upscale, a lot more modern, a lot more avant-garde. They've all been just kind of stale over the years. And the X6M, I really like this kind of black and yellow two-tone combination. It is slightly different versus the other X6 that I tested, the non-M version. When I come over here and shut the door, it has a nice solid sounding thunk, and I believe it also has a soft close feature. So again, $130,000. You better expect features like that. Now the key fob for the vehicle is the same BMW key. It's in my pocket here, so let me get it out here. It's the same BMW key fob. You can also use their digital key system. I have the key fob to actually set to unlock and lock the door whenever I walk away from the car or approach the car with the key fob in my pocket. The start stop button is down here. And right when it starts up, you can hear that lovely V8. The steering wheel is a power tilt and telescoping feature. When you put it into the M2 mode here, it opens up everything and makes it the most aggressive. Ooh. You know, this engine sounds a lot better than the last M5 that I tested, so I'm pretty happy to see BMW has really been improving the sound of their vehicles. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, here's the seats. As I said, they are super aggressive looking. Even the headrest is power adjustable, which is nice. Heated and cooled, like I said, and you have a massaging feature, which, like, I don't even know how many ways of massage. They hold you in place really nicely, and they're not too overly aggressive. I drove this car on like a 2-hour road trip, and I found the seats to be comfortable on those longer trips, so I really like the seats. The rest of the interior, you can see there's real leather and stitching all over the dash. My tester has that amazing Bowers & Wilkins Diamond audio system with 20 speakers and 1,000 watts of power. For $3,400, it's worth every penny, so definitely go for that. The leather stitching is extended onto the door panels where it looks very nice, rich, high quality. The window controls have that nice tactile, high quality feel. Although I'm surprised they're not trimmed in metal like the speakers, which as you can see are trimmed in metal, and they also have a nice light on the inside where you can change the light. It's leather stitched even down here. So again, this is a very expensive SUV and it looks and feels that way. The steering wheel is power tilt and telescoping, which I love. You have leather stitched on the airbag cover. It's a heated wheel. You have all your buttons here for your adaptive cruise control, and you can adjust the way the screen looks in there, the trip computer. I don't love how the paddles, however, are plastic. I think BMW should have gone with a real metal trim for the paddles. You can see the M1 and M2 drive mode selector. Those are customizable. M1, I have it as kind of like a sport everyday. M2 is like the track ready setting that turns the stability control into the less aggressive setting and makes the exhaust even louder. This 12-inch digital display here is slightly customizable. Actually, when I push and hold the M button over here, it actually will change the way that looks. That's the sport gauge. You can see it even changed the heads-up display to show you more of a larger tack. I don't really like the way the sport gauges look, so I would just honestly leave it in just the road version. And you can see it shows this really cool assisted driving view where it's very much like a Tesla. It shows you the car, what type of car, even a semi-truck or a truck in the lane, you know, either right or left of you or what's in front of you. So that's all very nice. The 12-inch display here, you can see this is part of BMW's iDrive 7.0. It has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, of course, which is very nice. You can see the screen is massive. It looks really good, high quality resolution, so I'm really happy to see that. BMW, the system here I found works most of the time, but sometimes my phone would crash whenever I was running the wireless Apple CarPlay, so it's not perfect. You can see there's the factory GPS. It looks great as well. This is pretty much on par with what you get from Mercedes as well. I think Audi still has them outdone a little bit more. When you put the vehicle in
to reverse, you can see BMW gives you a top-down full 360 camera. It also has an automatic parallel parking feature and a backup assistant, front and rear parking sensors. Very good quality resolution. It's what you expect in something like that's this expensive. You can see there's dual zone automatic climate control. BMW puts a little screen over there to show what you have the temperature at. Lots of traditional hard buttons here. You can see there's your preset buttons, a volume knob over here. The cup holders are heated and cooled, which they do a decent job of keeping the drinks cold. This feels only slightly cold after like an hour or two sitting in this cup holder. Just kind of keeping it a little bit cool. There's a wireless phone charger over there. You can also close this lid if you'd like. There's genuine carbon fiber trim. You can change this out to wood if you'd like. This controls the 8-speed automatic. To put it into reverse, you kind of kick it over here and then push it forward for reverse. That's neutral, and then kick it to the right for drive, and then push the P button to go to park. This area here is part of the iDrive 7.0, where you've got a handwriting pad here. You can kind of control the screen. You have this little control knob, or you can also use the touchscreen. I found most of the times I was using the touchscreen anyways, because I think it's a little bit easier to use versus the knob. Although if you don't want to get fingerprints all over there, that's the reason why BMW gives you the separate controller here with shortcut buttons over there. There's a separate exhaust loud button over here. This goes into your M setup mode, where there's a track mode or road mode, or you can go to the manual setup here, and it allows you to kind of custom tailor the drive mode exactly to how you'd like it to be. So BMW kind of went away with the traditional Sport Plus button. Instead, they just kind of allow you to customize it and then store it, preset it here in the M1 and M2 buttons, which I think is actually really good, because it's really easy to push this button here or push that button here to kind of select your drive mode. Going over here to the car setting, you can see a lot of beautiful graphics. You can also go into the M mode here, where you can change and configure all that. You can change the way the instrument panel looks. The car mode also allows you to do a lot of different things. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with iDrive 7.0. They've really improved it over the years. This is one of the best infotainment systems in the business, so I'm really happy to see that. Over here you can see a pretty good amount of storage in there. There's a USB-C, another USB port over there, which is good. When you look at the glove compartment, it's a pretty big size. It's stamped. It's lined with felt. And then above me, my tester comes with this big panoramic sunroof, which is nice. I didn't think that the X6 would offer that because of the sloping roofline. But overall, the interior feels a little bit on the snug side. It's not like cramped, but it feels cozy. It feels very driver focused because of this massive center tunnel. I love the steering wheel. I love the visibility. I love the heads-up display. This thing just feels like I'm sitting in just a taller M5. So this is a really nice interior to spend time in.
Now, the X6M competition is supposed to still be a family vehicle, even though it's got that sloping roof. However, because it's based on the X5, you do have a fairly good amount of rear seat space. Now, obviously that roof line is going to cut into the space a little bit. BMW says you lose about a ½ inch of headroom compared to the X5, and at 5'7", I'm not the tallest person in the world, but I still have plenty of room. In terms of legroom, there's around 35.7 inches, which is about 2 inches less versus the X5. The floor, as you can see, is not completely flat, but you do have a power outlet over here. You've got your own set of rear seat climate controls. There's heated rear seats, although I'm surprised to see there's no cooled seats. You have dual map pockets over here, and then BMW also gives you an armrest here that folds down. You can see the cup holders pop out. There's a little bit more storage over here. What I am noticing is missing are USB ports back here. I don't see any USB ports, but you do have these nice rear seat sunshades, and all the materials are really fantastic. I really like how the metal speaker covers for the Bowers & Wilkins sound system carries over into the back seat. So the last BMW M SUV that I drove were the X3 and X4M, and those vehicles were incredibly fun to drive, but the ride quality of that SUV was just too harsh for me. You don't necessarily need to do a hard ride when you have excellent handling. So right off the bat, I'm noticing in the X6M competition that BMW it has fixed the ride quality in these bigger, more expensive SUVs, which is to be expected. This is significantly more expensive. It's bigger, and just its regular comfort setting, this rides how I expect a luxury SUV to ride. Just a little bit firmer, of course, but it's not harsh. You can take this on a long trip. It's not going to break your back or make your teeth chatter like you would in the X3 or X4M. Now, the last time I drove an X6, it was the M50i, and I was pretty much very impressed with that. I questioned the need to go to an actual full M version because it just has so much power. I mean, 0 to 60 was like around the 4-second mark in the M50i. This one, however, BMW says we'll get to 60 in 3.7 seconds. And with standard all-wheel drive, wow. I will say that the noise is better on the outside. It's a little bit synthesized in the cabin. Ooh. But M versions of BMWs have always been incredibly fun to drive. This one definitely has the feel that I'm expecting from an M model. Now, the drive mode setup is pretty different from what I'm used to in other BMW products. BMW seems to have simplified things a little bit, which is interesting. Like, if I push and hold the M button here, you can go into a track setting. That's where you can activate the launch control for this vehicle. It also changes the way the gauge display looks. It turns off all the safety tech and such like that, which is what you expect. Oh my goodness. It definitely feels like it gets to 60 in the mid 3-second range. This is unbelievably fast. For something that weighs like 5,300 pounds is very, very impressive. So this feels more fun to drive for me than the last E63 or GLE 63. So this is very, very good. The handling of this car is amazing, yet the ride is good. But if you put it into sport setting or M2, like I've got to customize here, the car just feels like a sports sedan. It feels like I'm just driving a taller BMW M5. Some of the BMW purists may criticize, well, the latest M models are kind of dull to drive. They're just very, very serious. But I like the noise it makes. I like the 8-speed auto. The paddles also aren't quite as quick as the fastest dual clutches. But you can hear the burble and the pop from the exhaust. It's a very refined, muted, kind of almost muscle car-like growl. But unlike the GLE 63S that I just drove recently, this feels more sporty. The steering is more alive, it talks to you, the chassis stays very stiff. Same with the Mercedes, but it just feels more playful, which is kind of, I think, what I prefer. And just like the X3 and X4M, this car will get sideways when you put it into its tracks or sports setting, because the X drive system will send more power to the rear wheels to get this thing's tail to step out, which is just unbelievably fun. I could never get tired of doing that in this SUV. It's just so much fun to drive. Makes a good noise, excellent steering. And you don't even have to do the launch control. Anytime you just want to pass somebody at the light, that pesky, 335i or 340i, this thing will smoke a lot of vehicles that are way faster. Jesus. Oh. Every time I drive one of these really fast SUVs, it makes me think, I guess I could get used to driving an SUV, because you do sit up nice and high in this vehicle. The ride quality is good. Visibility is actually better for this generation, I notice. I can see out of the front pretty well. This pillar is fairly large. The side mirrors are a little they're kind of average size, so I can see okay out of it. The back view, however, is obviously not as good as the X5, but this has all the driver assistance tech that you expect, although my tester has the driver assistance professional package. So that, of course, gives you all that additional stuff where it gives you the self-driving and whatnot. Let's go over back into the road mode here. And that turns all the nannies back on. This car actually does have the ability to drive for you in most interstate situations. For example, I have the cruise control turned on right now. I can literally signal left here, and the car will actually change lanes for me, which that was something that BMW just added. I didn't realize they added the auto lane change feature for this newer generation of Driver Assistance Pro package models. But it's pretty simple to activate. All you have to do is just kind of be driving along, and just like a Tesla or a Mercedes, whenever you signal right or signal left, the system will check the blind spot indicators or the radar or whatever, and it'll tell you that it's safe to change lanes, and it'll actually turn the wheel for you. You do have to keep your hands on the wheel, but I also love the graphic that BMW shows you there, their driver assistance graphic that shows you what kind of vehicle is next to you. Even will recognize semi-trucks. This is very much the same thing that I saw in some Teslas and from some Genesis models, the newer Genesis G80. So it's good to see BMW has really been improving their tech. It's really easy to use. I like the wireless Apple CarPlay, which works fairly well for the most part. The Bowers & Wilkins sound system is phenomenal. The sound in here as well, like quietness. There is some road noise creeping in, obviously, through those tires, but it's not any worse than what you'd expect in, you know, an M3, whatnot. So if you're coming from something like an M5 or an M3, this has that refined feeling that buyers expect in this segment. It's really, really nice. But then of course, when you put it into its M2 mode with the stability control into its sports setting, this thing corners so flatly. The tail likes to get a little aggressive, but it doesn't feel like it's going to kill you. It almost feels like the back tires are on marbles, which is a joy to drive this thing. Super fun to drive. And in terms of fuel economy, in my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 17 miles to the gallon in mostly highway driving. On the interstate, it got close to 20, which isn't bad. You've got a pretty big gas tank, so I was looking at around 450 mile cruising ranges, which is pretty good, but you will be dealing with pretty expensive fill-ups because of that big gas tank and the fact that it does use premium. Just know that this doesn't have like the mild hybrid system that the GLE 63 had, which increases or makes the start-stop a little bit smoother. This one's not quite as smooth, and the fuel economy isn't quite as good as it could be. But here in normal mode right now, just cruising along, I feel like I'm driving just a regular X6. So that's the beauty of a vehicle in this segment, if you can afford the price tag. So BMW took a huge gamble when they introduced the original X6 about 12 years ago. And even though it was a huge gamble, it actually paid off because the company managed to sell almost 70,000 units in America since it was first launched back in 2009. That's just an impressive amount for kind of a niche vehicle. In fact, it's been so successful that other manufacturers, BMW or Mercedes, Audi, have followed suit with their own versions. Even Porsche just came out with the Cayenne Coupe. So this is a segment that continues to grow, and BMW says the M version accounts for about 30% of the total sales for the X6. So this is a huge moneymaker for the company. So after spending a week driving this new X6M competition, as much as I hate to admit it, I don't like this class of vehicle. I think you should just get the X5 because it's more practical. I will admit that the X6M competition is a really nice car to daily drive. If you guys have always wanted an M5 or an M8, but you want to have that practicality of an SUV, this is the one you're gonna wanna get because it rides and handles like a sports sedan. The twin turbo V8 is just brutally fast. It'll easily do 0 to 60 in around the 3.5 second mark. It has a ride quality that won't beat you up when you have it in comfort, but when you put it into a race mode, it literally feels like a race car, and it'll do drifts all day long, just like an M5, which makes this thing even more comical because you're sitting up so high, and you could theoretically take it off-road because it offers 8.4 inches of ground clearance, maybe with the right tires. I think BMW would rather you take this thing out to a track. And really, I'm super impressed with how different this car feels versus just the M50i, because I like the M50i, but I will say that the X6M competition does feel a little bit more special, and I also prefer it over the GLE 63S that I tested a couple of weeks ago. But with all that said, if you guys are looking to purchase one of these, what's it gonna cost? Well, the X6M starts at around $108,000, which is about $3,000 more than the X5M. This car is also about $22,000 more expensive than the M50i, which is already an expensive car. I would argue if you guys have always wanted an M, it's probably worth the money, especially if you guys already have $86,000 to spend for the M50i. Now, my tester has the $9,000 competition package, plus it also has the driver assistance professional package, the 22-inch wheels, the upgraded interior. All in, this car stickers for a whopping nearly $130,000, which is a lot of money. However, its competitors are right around the same price. And keep in mind, if you guys want that Porsche Cayenne Coupe, that's gonna cost you close to $200,000 with options. So really, the BMW offers a lot. It's also one of the sportier driving vehicles, much sportier than the last GLE 63 that I tested. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2020 BMW X6M competition. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.